In accumulative terms, 47,204 cured and discharged cases, 2,943 death cases, and 80,151 confirmed cases. Now, there are 587 suspected cases. In total, 664,899 close contacts are traced, and 40,651 close contacts are still under medical observation. For Hubei, the newly increased confirmed cases 114, including 111 in Wuhan. For newly increased cured and discharged cases, 2410, including 1846 in Wuhan. New increased fatal cases 31, including 24 in Wuhan. There are confirmed cases 28,216, including 24,144 in Wuhan, including 6,593 of severe cases, including 6,020 in Wuhan. In total, 36,167 cases are cured and discharged, including 23,031 in Wuhan. In total, there have been 2,834 death cases, including 2,251 in Wuhan. Confirmed cases 67,217, including 49,426 in Wuhan. Newly increased suspected cases 64, including 62 in Wuhan, and suspected cases now 434, including 316 in Wuhan. In total, there are 151 confirmed cases reported from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, including 100 from Hong Kong SAR, 10 from Macau SAR, and 41 from the Taiwan region. Excluding Hubei, the provinces in China have a total increase of 11 for confirmed cases and 65 suspected cases, and there's no fatal case, and the severe case has dropped by 25. For provinces outside Hubei, over the past 5 days, the newly increased case has been kept under 10, and the suspected cases has been kept under 100. And on average, about 3,000 cases are cured and discharged every day, and we are now enjoying a positive trend concerning the epidemic control. And for the next step, we will continue to adopt the differentiated policies and emphasize the accountability system. The daily routine practices will be continued. So that's all for the updates. Now we will have the Q&A. Please focus on today's theme and put forward your questions. And of course, please identify yourself. Now the floor is open. First question. On the right, on the front row, the lady reporter there. Thank you. From China Media Group, CCTV Finance Channel. At the moment, the localities are accelerating the work resumption, but SMEs are also faced with difficult access to financing. So what are the specific measures adopted by the Ministry of Finance and the relevant government authority to help them? We will have DG Fu to answer your question. Thank you for your question. Following the CPC Central Committee and the State Council's arrangement, the Ministry of Finance has worked together with the relevant agencies to work out the policies to help the enterprises, especially the SMEs, to resume operation. The policies can be summarized into 3 aspects. The first is to collect less from the enterprises. Apart from implementing the taxation favorable policies, we have also worked out the fee-based favorable policies to relieve the financial burden of the SMEs. So, in fees like the pension contribution, such fee reduce the fee collection can help the enterprises to overcome the financial difficulties by 500 billion RMB yuan. Also, we have reduced the collection of medical insurance contribution, and this can also help the enterprises. Starting from last year, the pension fund contribution was reduced from 16% to 2%, and up to now, over 1 trillion RMB yuan have been saved for the enterprises. Second, the government provides more subsidy. In this regard, we have expanded the coverage of such subsidies, especially for the SMEs, and also we provide more subsidies for unemployment. Furthermore, we have strengthened the subsidy to the occupational training and conduct online vocational training. During the epidemic, for SMEs who are unable to resume their business, they can conduct offline and also online trainings, and such trainings will also be covered by the training subsidy. Thirdly, reduce the cost of financing. We offered more interest cut and provide more support to the SMEs. And we provide 50% of the interest cut to the SMEs so that they can access low-cost financing. So the financing cost will be no more than 1.6%. As far as we know, we have relevant information from the People's Bank of China, and the interest for SMEs is even further lowered. So we hope to help the SMEs out of difficulty. Thank you. Let's continue. On the left, on the front row, the second lady reporter there.
Thank you. From Hong Kong Economic Herald. Since the outbreak of the epidemic, the State Council and Party Central Committee have adopted an array of preferential taxation policies. Some policies will also trace back to the original time when there was the epidemic. How will these policies be implemented? I'd like to ask DG Wang Daoshu to take the question. Thank you for your question. We have adopted an array of taxation cut policies. As you have rightly pointed out, policies were first adopted in February, but the effective date can be traced back to the early of January. And the latest policies will be implemented since the 1st of March. To ensure the taxpayers enjoy these favorable policies, the State Administration of Taxation requires that the implementation must be forceful, and the epidemic prevention and control measures must be safeguarded. For the specific implementation of the policies, the State Administration of Taxation has made timely efforts, first in providing trainings online through WeChat and through hotlines. Information and the policies have been conveyed to the taxpayers. We've also convened some online trainings to let the enterprises understand these favorable policies. 130 questions have been answered online. Second, we timely printed the feasible guidelines. After each policy was adopted, we began to solicit effective measures for implementation in prevention and control, public donations, and in supporting the resumption of work. Third, we timely made adjustment to our information system. The State Administration of Taxation supported relevant departments and made preparation for the adjustment to the information system. Once a policy is adopted, there will be seamless operation by the information system. Fourth, we timely monitored the training of the tax administration staff. Tax administration at all levels must have their staff trained. A proper incentive mechanism is in place to ensure the favorable policies will see its final effects. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the right side. Thank you. With the CRI. In early February, the State Administration of Taxation has adopted a couple of favorable policies, and VAT was exempted from SMEs. Why do you choose VAT to be exempted? I'd like to ask DG Wang Jianfan from Ministry of Finance to take the question. Within 1 month, the State Council has adopted 3 tax cuts policies, and this time the favorable policy focuses on the SME taxpayer. Those who pay VAT include the general taxpayers and the small-scale taxpayers with an annual revenue of below 5 million RMB. And the small-scale taxpayers is of 80% of all the taxpayers who pay VAT. So the reduction of VAT focuses on this special group. The reason we've selected VAT to exempt is because for any business, as long as they have revenue, they will have to pay VAT. And for the small-scale taxpayer, the revenue multiplied by the percentage of payment, which is 3%, is collected. And for the small-scale taxpayers in Hubei province, their VAT will be exempted for 3 months. And those outside Hubei, their VAT rate is reduced from 3% to the current 1%. Any business, if they have revenue, they will have to pay VAT tax. But for this round of favorable policy, all the small-scale taxpayers will enjoy this favorable tax cut. It is because VAT is a universally charged tax and it covers all the small-scale businesses. That was why we've selected VAT for the tax cut. Next question, please. A journalist from the left side, from the first row, from Economic Daily. Small-scale businesses and self-employed businesses are the businesses that are most heavily hit by the epidemic. What are the specific measures adopted to help these SMEs and self-employed businesses to deal with the difficulties? I'd like to ask DG Wang Daoshu from the State Administration of Taxation to take the question. Thank you for the question. The State Council and the Central Party Committee pay great attention to this special group of business. Efforts were made. The taxation authorities have been helping the self-employed businesses and SMEs in the following aspects. First, ensure they can enjoy the policy dividends. The tax cuts policies are of many. Such policies help businesses to resume their business. VAT tax is exempted in Hubei and is cut in provinces outside of Hubei from the original 3% to the current 1%. SMEs and self-employed businesses can also enjoy other tax cuts by the authority. Since last year, For business with an annual sales revenue of below 100,000, the previous favorable tax policy can continue. And they can also have a temporary cut in their social insurance payment. And all these are the focuses in our policy implementation. We will try our best to ensure all these favorable policies can and will be enjoyed by SMEs. Second, we've facilitated the convenience of the businesses in accessing to these policies. We have 4 specific methods to realize the goal. First, there is a thematic service column on our websites. The policies and measures will be disseminated on these thematic columns. And second, we have a dedicated hotline 12306. And there is dedicated services from the call center to take questions. We've set up a good navigation system so that SMEs and self-employed businesses can have dedicated services. And besides, we also have dedicated service desks for the SMEs and the self-employed business. Third, in financing, businesses are helped to have an easier access to financing. Starting from this year, in one of our campaigns to make it easier for the businesses, we have rated the credit rating of the businesses. The information dissemination to the SMEs have also been made a one-stop service so that it's easier for them to navigate online for the information they need. For the next steps, we will continue to implement these measures and help the SMEs and self-employed businesses to go through the rough patch. Next question, please. Journalist from the third row on the right side with the CCTV. I have a question on the medical expenditures. We know we don't want the patients to worry about the payment, so there was a policy to reduce the out-of-pocket payment. What was the overall input? How was the effect?
DG Fu, please. Thank you for your question and your interest in the work of finance. Just now, you mentioned the medical expenditure and the medical supplies production. And we have relevant policies to ensure that people can have timely access to medical treatment, and finance should not become a barrier for people to seek medical help. At the moment, the 2 policies are well implemented, generating sound results. In terms of the guarantee for medical expenses, we have clarified that apart from the regular settlement, the financial department will provide the bottom line to overcome the gap, and also the localities will provide subsidies and complemented by the central budget finance. By March the 2nd, the budgets for medical control has reached over 100 billion RMB yuan. It is fair to say that we've already ensured the adequate provision of budget and have provided financial assistance to people who need to seek medical care. And the central budget has also provided assistance to producers of medical supplies as the government provides the minimum procurement cost and also the procurement amount to ensure the adequate production of the medical supplies. It is fair to say that these two policies have ensured the adequate supply of funding and also have encouraged the relevant businesses and institutions to provide adequate services in the epidemic containment. Okay, let's continue on the right, on the second row, the gentleman over there. Thank you, DG Mi. I'm from China Enterprise News. In the epidemic containment and the resumption of work, there are some businesses who have contributed greatly. Some companies make donations, while others provide intelligence or human resource support. So for these companies, will they enjoy some fiscal and taxation support to reward their contribution? And what are the financial incentives the government will offer? We will have DG Wang to answer your question. Thank you for your question. We've already mentioned that since the outbreak of the epidemic, the government has worked out in three groups or in three batches the relevant policy measures. We've reviewed the policies and found that they can be divided into four aspects. First, supporting the prevention and medical care for qualified services and measures. The individual revenue tax, income tax will be exempted, and also for medical supplies, qualified or eligible, they can also be exempted from the income tax or revenue VAT. Also, the relevant VAT for enterprises can be exempted or returned back to the businesses. If the taxpayer has been engaged in the daily services provided to the households and individuals in the epidemic, their VAT will also be exempted. Furthermore, for companies who have imported medical supplies for the epidemic control, the import tax or duty will be exempted. Also, for enterprises who have donated cash or goods to the relevant authorities, their business tax will be exempted. And also, if they make donation to the hospitals and epidemic affected people, such business revenue tax will be exempted too. Also, some miscellaneous taxation will also be exempted. And we support the resumption of work and production. For companies in difficulty, the turnover, they can also enjoy favorable taxation policies to settle the taxation transferred from the previous year, and periodically some of the contributions to the unemployment fund and the pension fund can be exempted. We encourage the localities to reduce the collection of the land use charge, and also to encourage the tax reduction for the real estate or for the property lease. So the taxation authorities will earnestly implement the Central Committee, the CPC Central Committee and the State Council's policy guidance, and constantly optimize the taxation services by using the NFC approach so that people can enjoy the benefits of such policy measures. Let's continue. On the right, on the second row, the gentleman. Thank you. From Xinhua News Agency. Starting from February, in Hubei province, the maximum tax reduction can be extended to 5 months. So will this affect the implementation of the Social Security Fund? DG Fu, please. Thank you for your interest in our work, and also thank you so much for your concern about the epicenter, the Hubei province. Together with the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security, when we were developing the 3 relevant policy measures in the light of the severe epidemic situation in Hubei, we provide more policy support to Hubei. It is stated that, or stipulated that, starting from February, the businesses in Hubei can be exempted for 5 months of such contribution.
The adoption of the policy can effectively ease the burden on Hubei businesses and facilitate their earlier resumption of work. The exemption or the lowering of enterprises' social insurance payments have been under calculation and analysis. In general, these might impact the 3 types of social insurance funds, but the impact is controllable. For the unemployment insurance and the work-related injury compensation insurance still have some carryover, which can support the payment to employees for 2 years and plus. Or in other words, in these 2 types of social insurance funds, the exemption and the lowering policies can be effectively implemented. And in the pension fund, if the payments by businesses can be exempted for 5 months, then the fund's revenue will be reduced by 22 billion RMB. By the end of 2019, there was still a carryover of over 100 billion RMB in the fund. The central finance in it is also analyzing this year's central government transfer payment. And in this study, the central finance has paid special attention to the Hubei fund. There will be central transfer to ensure that the temporary exemption or the lowering of the social insurance payment will not lead to a fund gap. The central finance transfer and subsidies plus last year's residues and carryover can fully meet the needs of the pension payments to employees, the policy can be implemented and all the old-aged can collect their pension in full and on time. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the third row on the left side, please. Thank you. From Shenzhen TV. We know departments and ministries have adopted an array of tax and fee reduction policies. In face of the epidemic, what are the policies target at the needs for resumption of business? I'd like to ask DG Wang Jianfan from Ministry of Finance to take the question. Thank you. That's a good question. Just now, Mr. Wang Daoshu from State Administration of Taxation has already introduced 3 series of the tax and fee reduction policies we've adopted since February. I'd like to attempt an answer from 4 points. First, in recent years, we have been continuously adopting tax and fee reductions, in particular in 2019. The annual tax and fee reduced, valued 2 trillion RMB. There will be more specific official data that can be released later. In the 2 trillion RMB that was reduced, most of them were institutional reduction. We had institutional tax and fee reduction. We also have a temporary tax and fee reduction. But in general, in last year's package of tax and fee reduction, the majority was institutional reduction, which means it will be continued this year. For example, VAT rate was reduced to 13%, a cut by 3 percentage points. We also made according adjustments, and this will be continuous and consistent institutional arrangement. In recent years, we've also been streamlining administrative fees and the government fund contributions. Administrative fees were reduced from the original 158 to the current couple of fees. And the government fund contribution has also been reduced by a big margin. Such reduction will be continued. Second, in the favorable tax policy scheme, there are already favorable policies on SMEs. Some are institutional favorable policies, and some are temporary or provisional policies. Some are targeting at facilitating innovation. In face of force majeure like SARS and the current epidemic may trigger and boost the development of certain industries and sectors which have to be dependent on R&D and innovation. The reduction of tax increased from the original 50% to the current 70% that can be applied to all the innovators. The statutory tax rate was 25%, and the favorable tax rate was reduced to 15% to encourage innovation. Also, for green development, comprehensive utilization of energies, there are also favorable tax and fee reduction policies, and we believe the targeted policies may also cover the businesses who want to resume their operation. Besides, since the outbreak of the epidemic, we've also adopted some provisional or temporary policies to ensure the supplies, the transportation of the supplies, the businesses who are supporting the daily necessities to the general public, and also for businesses of small scales and the SMEs within Hubei province, temporary and provisional tax and fee reduction policies were adopted to ensure precision in policy implementation. The fourth point I want to mention is that as the epidemic unfolds and macroeconomic needs arise, we will continue to evaluate the current macroeconomic measures. We will study the newly cropped issues and adopt policies accordingly. So even after today's press conference, you may hear new policies in tax and fee reduction so as to facilitate the resumption of business. Thank you. Next question, please. Journalist from the third row on the left side, please. Thank you. From Hong Kong China Review. Taxation administration have to do a parallel job in collecting fees, reviewing the application of the taxpayers, as well as do a good job of prevention and control. What are the specific measures to ensure safe and convenient tax policy application and tax collection? Thank you. I'd like to ask DG Cai Zili to take the question. The Taxation Authority has a four-step approach to ensure safe and convenient administration. First, the postponing of the payment. We've postponed the tax affairs disposal and treatment to the end of February. Second, online collection of taxation. The taxpayers can make the tax payment online. Third, for the individualized and personalized questions, the taxpayers can ask for answers on our hotlines. Fourth, for those business and affairs that have to be dealt with on-site, we ensure safe environment in the tax offices, but we still postpone the business to the next month. As businesses are incrementally trickling back to operation, starting from the 27th of this year, we've started a thematic campaign, implemented 24 measures. 90% of the tax payment can be conducted online. The speed of the administration has been increased by 20%. We will continue with these measures to ensure satisfaction from taxpayers.
Let's continue. On the left, on the fourth row, the third lady reporter. Thank you. From Business News Daily. Since the outbreak, Hubei and other provinces affected severely by the epidemic have been gravely affected in terms of finance and taxation. So what are the measures adopted to relieve the pressure? We will have DG Fu to answer your question. Thank you for your question concerning the fiscal and taxation work. To be frank, the epidemic has caused some negative impact on the fiscal revenue. Such negative impact is temporary, however, since we have a fairly adequate room for adjustment and we enjoy the flexibility. We've considered such uncertainty in planning for this year's fiscal revenue, and at the moment, the Epidemic Prevention and Control Fund is adequately guaranteed. So we enjoy the flexibility. For the next step, Ministry of Finance will make sound planning and arrangement for fiscal revenue and the financial supporting policies. We will earnestly implement the relevant policy guidance and strengthen the transfer payment to the localities, especially to provinces like Hubei, who are severely affected by the epidemic. We wish to ensure that these localities can be guaranteed for their budget expenditure, and we will try to minimize the negative impact caused by the epidemic. Thank you. Let's continue the Q&A on the left, on the front row, the fourth lady reporter, please. Thank you, DG Mi from CNR. My question is about poverty alleviation. We know that the year 2020 is a crucial year for the final success against poverty. So I would like to know that what kind of arrangements have been made for this year's poverty alleviation. We will continue to have DG Fu to answer your question. Thank you for your question. The year 2020 is a critical year for China, as this is the year for us to realize the Xiaokang society, and also the critical year to win the final success against poverty. To this end, the Ministry of Finance has worked with other government agencies to expand the efforts and ensure the success of our work. I think there are mainly three aspects of work. The first is to intensify the financial input. In the year 2020, the earmarked poverty alleviation fund from the central government will be increased, and we will have priorities to support the poverty-stricken areas like the mountainous areas, and also for localities which need to have the relocation projects to have a poverty alleviation. They can enjoy more financial input from the central government. It is fair to say that this year's poverty alleviation effort has not been affected by the epidemic. And second, to work out appropriate policies together with government agencies like the State Council's Poverty Alleviation Office. The Ministry of Finance has already worked out policies to provide more financial support to the poverty-stricken provinces and also provinces severely affected by the epidemic. So in aspects like transportation and trading, we are helping the poverty-stricken areas to gain access to the market. And also, maybe you have already noticed that the Ministry of Finance has just released the poverty alleviation plan. We have identified 10 priorities in this regard, and these 10 priorities are being advanced. The Ministry of Finance will continue to offer guidance to the localities for poverty alleviation. We will emphasize the implementation of the policies and strengthen the regulation over the fund. Thank you. Let's continue the Q&A. On the right, on the fifth row, the first reporter there. Thank you. From China News Service. Some companies complained about the difficult access to raw materials. We know that the taxation authorities have access to such data, and can you use the data to provide big data services? and offer well-targeted support to such companies. We will have DG Cai to answer your question. It's a very good question, and thank you for putting it. Indeed, the taxation authorities enjoy advantages in terms of the taxation data. We are using the taxation data to support the enterprises so that they can resume their business as early as possible. We are serving the decision-making process in the governments, and using the taxation data, especially the invoice data, we have made the daily calculation and analysis, which soundly reflect the enterprise's status. Data show that in the first week of work resumption, compared with the same period last year, the invoice was not as many as in the previous year, but starting from the second week of work resumption, the situation is improving, indicating that the companies are accelerating their work resumption. Also, the taxation authorities have considered the local conditions and provided the results of analysis for decision-making and the policy input in the local governments. Also, we have conducted the well-targeted supportive measures to facilitate the work resumption and make the supply chain operating efficiently. We are helping the enterprises to find their markets and overcome the obstacles. For example, the Zhejiang Taxation Authority set up a fast response mechanism, quickly matching the supply and demand. Up to now, 117 companies have been helped with this mechanism. Another example is in Shandong province. Due to the epidemic containment, the medical supplies were not able to be transferred or transported smoothly. So we used the data from the taxation on the logistics companies and ensure the smooth transportation of the medical supplies. For the next step, we will continue to use the big data in taxation and better serve the companies in work resumption. Thank you.
Thank you. In the interest of time, we will take the last two questions. Journalist from the third row on the right side, please. Thank you. China Daily. We've learned that the taxation authorities are planning to collect a social insurance payment in 18 provinces. The State Council has issued a policy of exempting and reducing the social insurance payments by enterprises. So what is the progress of the planning and the actual collection? What about the refunding? Thank you. I'd like to ask DG Cai to answer the question. Thank you for your question. The temporary exemption or the lowering of enterprises' social insurance payments is an important policy adopted by the central government. Since the 28th of February, the policy was decided, and taxation authorities have been doing the following three jobs. First, we followed the guidances and documents and issued a notice on the temporary exemption and lowering of enterprises' social insurance payments, and special guidances on the payments on the medical insurance by the employees. Local taxation authorities have worked out the local guidelines. The Taxation Administration has issued its national notice We also elaborated on the accounting analysis and also the refunding of the payments to the businesses. And we have held officials at various taxation authorities accountable. We ensure the tax administration staff can understand the practices and do a better job in the refunding of the payments. Businesses are very much concerned about the refunding of the already paid payments. We've worked out the specific measures. We've guided local taxation authorities to accelerate their work so as to benefit the businesses as quickly as possible. Many businesses have already been refunded, and down the road, the taxation authority will collaborate with other departments to refund the payments in full. Last question, please. Journalist from the fourth row on the right side. Thank you. From China Health Magazine, we've noticed that apart from Hubei, the February application of the tax has ended on the 28th of February. So what was the real picture? I'd like to ask Wang Daoshu to take the question. Thank you for your question. To facilitate prevention, control, and the resumption of business, taxation administration has postponed the tax payment in February twice. Apart from Hubei province, the February tax application and payment has been concluded. It has been orderly and very smooth. I'd like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to all the taxpayers for their understanding and support on behalf of the State Administration of Taxation. What needs to be pointed out is that for the taxpayers hit heavily by the epidemic and who failed to pay taxes, they can postpone the tax application and tax reporting in accordance with the current measures. State Administration of Taxation has asked local authorities to do a good job in the four-step approach. No late fee will be collected on those who failed to pay in time. There won't be administrative penalties, and there will be no adjustment to the credit rating of those who failed to report tax immediately. And it is already March, and people are very much concerned about tax reporting and tax payment in March. And the State Administration of Taxation, in accordance with law, has postponed the tax reporting deadline by 1 week. The declaration of tax deadline will be extended from the 16th of March to 23rd of March. And for the businesses in the first level of alert, the provincial taxation authorities can further postpone the deadline of declaration. I'd like to thank the guest speakers. Now I'd like to ask Director Wei from the